Chapter 14, Part 2. In these songs, I have said, the slave spoke to the world. Such a message is naturally veiled and half-articulate. Words and music have lost each other, and new and cant phrases of a dimly understood theology have displaced the older sentiment. Once in a while we catch a strange word of an unknown tongue, as the mighty Myo, which figures as a river of death. More often slight words or mere doggerel are joined to music of singular sweetness. Purely secular songs are few in number, partly because many of them were turned into hymns by a change of words, partly because the frolics were seldom heard by the stranger, and the music less often caught. Of nearly all the songs, however, the music is distinctly sorrowful. The 10 master songs I have mentioned tell in word and music of trouble and exile, of strife and hiding. They grope toward some unseen power and sigh for rest in the end. The words that are left to us are not without interest, and, cleared of evident dross, they conceal much of real poetry and meaning beneath conventional theology and unmeaning rhapsody. Like all primitive folk, the slave stood near to nature's heart. Life was a rough and rolling sea like the brown Atlantic of the Sea Islands. The wilderness was the home of God, and the lonesome valley led to the way of life. Winter'll soon be over was the picture of life and death to a tropical imagination. The sudden wild thunderstorms of the South awed and impressed the Negroes. At times the rumbling seemed to them mournful, at times imperious. My Lord calls me, he calls me by the thunder, the trumpet sounds it in my soul. The monotonous toil and exposure is painted in many words. One sees the ploughman in the hot, moist furrow, singing, "There's no rain to wet you, there's no sun to burn you, oh, push along, believer, I want to go home." The bowed and bent old man cries, with thrice-repeated wail, "O Lord, keep me from sinking down." And he rebukes the devil of doubt who can whisper, "Jesus is dead and God's gone away." Yet the soul hunger is there, the restlessness of the savage, the wail of the wanderer, and the plaint is put in one little phrase. Over the inner thoughts of the slaves and their relations one with another the shadow of fear ever hung, so that we get but glimpses here and there, and also with them, eloquent omissions and silences. Mother and child are sung, but seldom father. Fugitive and weary wanderer call for pity and affection, but there is little of wooing and wedding. The rocks and the mountains are well known, but home is unknown. Strange blending of love and helplessness sings through the refrain. Yonder's my old mudder, been waggin' at the hill so long, 'bout time she cross over, get home by'm by. Elsewhere comes the cry of the motherless and the farewell, farewell, my only child. Love songs are scarce and fall into 2 categories, the frivolous and light, and the sad. Of deep successful love there is ominous silence, and in one of the oldest of these songs there is a depth of history and meaning. A black woman said of the song, "It can't be sung without a full heart and a troubled spirit." The same voice sings here that sings in the German folk song. Jets gay I ans Brunel, Trink Abernet. Of death the Negro showed little fear, but talked of it familiarly and even fondly as simply a crossing of the waters, perhaps, who knows, back to his ancient forests again. Later days transfigured his fatalism, and amid the dust and dirt the twaller sang, "Dust, dust and ashes, fly over my grave, but the Lord shall bear my spirit home." The things evidently borrowed from the surrounding world undergo characteristic change when they enter the mouth of the slave. Especially is this true of Bible phrases. "Weep, O captive daughter of Zion," is quaintly turned into "Zion, weep alo," and the wheels of Ezekiel are turned every way in the mystic dreaming of the slave, till he says, "There's a little wheel atin in my heart." As in olden time, the words of these hymns were improvised by some leading minstrel of the religious band. The circumstances of the gathering, however, the rhythm of the songs, and the limitations of allowable thought, confined the poetry for the most part to single or double lines, and they seldom were expanded to quatrains or longer tales, although there are some few examples of sustained efforts, chiefly paraphrases of the Bible. 3 short series of verses have always attracted me, the one that heads this chapter, of one line of which Thomas Wentworth Higginson has fittingly said, "Never, it seems to me, since man first lived and suffered was his infinite longing for peace uttered more plaintively." The second and third are descriptions of the Last Judgment, the one a late improvisation, with some traces of outside influence. "Oh, the stars in the elements are falling, and the moon drips away into blood, and the ransomed of the Lord are returning unto God, blessed be the name of the Lord." And the other earlier and homelier picture from the low-coast lands. Michael, haul the boat ashore, then you'll hear the horn they blow, then you'll hear the trumpet sound the world around, trumpet sound for rich and poor, trumpet sound the jubilee, trumpet sound for you and me. Through all the sorrow of the sorrow songs there breathes a hope, a faith in the ultimate justice of things. The minor cadences of despair change often to triumph and calm confidence. Sometimes it is faith in life, sometimes a faith in death, sometimes assurance of boundless justice in some fair world beyond. But whichever it is, the meaning is always clear, that sometime, somewhere, men will judge men by their souls and not by their skins. Is such a hope justified? Do the sorrow songs sing true? The silently growing assumption of this age is that the probation of races is past, and that the backward races of today are of proven inefficiency and not worth the saving. Such an assumption is the arrogance of peoples irreverent toward time and ignorant of the deeds of men. 1,000 years ago such an assumption, easily possible, would have made it difficult for the Teuton to prove his right to life. 2,000 years ago such dogmatism, readily welcome, would have scouted the idea of blonde races ever leading civilization. So woefully unorganized is sociological knowledge that the meaning of progress, the meaning of swift and slow in human doing, and the limits of human perfectibility, are veiled, unanswered sphinxes on the shores of science. Why should Aeschylus have sung 2,000 years before Shakespeare was born? Why has civilization flourished in Europe, and flickered, flamed, and died in Africa? So long as the world stands meekly dumb before such questions, shall this nation proclaim its ignorance and unhallowed prejudices by denying freedom of opportunity to those who brought the sorrow songs to the seats of the mighty? Your country? How came it yours? Before the pilgrims landed we were here. Here we have brought our 3 gifts and mingled them with yours, a gift of story and song, soft, stirring melody in an ill-harmonized and unmelodious land, the gift of sweat and brawn to beat back the wilderness, conquer the soil, and lay the foundations of this vast economic empire 200 years earlier than your weak hands could have done it, the third, a gift of the Spirit. Around us the history of the land has centered for thrice 100 years. Out of the nation's heart we have called all that was best to throttle and subdue all that was worst. Fire and blood, prayer and sacrifice, have billowed over this people, and they have found peace only in the altars of the God of right. Nor has our gift of the Spirit been merely passive. Actively we have woven ourselves with the very warp and woof of this nation. We fought their battles, shared their sorrow, mingled our blood with theirs, and generation after generation have pleaded with a headstrong, careless people to despise not justice, mercy, and truth, lest the nation be smitten with a curse. Our song, our toil, our cheer, and warning have been given to this nation in blood brotherhood. Are not these gifts worth the giving? Is not this work and striving? Would America have been America without her Negro people? Even so is the hope that sang in the songs of my fathers well sung. If somewhere in this world and chaos of things there dwells eternal good, pitiful yet masterful, then anon in his good time America shall rend the veil and the prison shall go free. Free, free as the sunshine trickling down the morning into these high windows of mine, free as yonder fresh young voices welling up to me from the caverns of brick and mortar below, swelling with song, instinct with life, tremulous treble and darkening bass. My children, my little children, are singing to the sunshine, and thus they sing. And the traveler girds himself, and sets his face toward the morning, and goes his way. The afterthought. Hear my cry, O God the reader, vouchsafe that this my book fall not stillborn into the world wilderness. Let there spring, gentle one, from out its leaves vigor of thought and thoughtful deed to reap the harvest wonderful. Let the ears of a guilty people tingle with truth, and 70 million sigh for the righteousness which exalteth nations, in this drear day when human brotherhood is mockery and a snare. Thus in thy good time may infinite reason turn the tangle straight, and these crooked marks on a fragile leaf be not indeed. The end.